lived abroad for about 20 years between the US, Costa Rica, Mexico, Spain, and throughout that time the number one lesson that I learned, or the number one benefit I gained, is recognizing my own ignorance and my own narrow-mindedness. And what I mean by that is, until I had lived in another country, it was inevitable that I recognized the world through my own vision, which was all the information that I had received since I was a baby. And that's based on language, the way people dress, the habits people have, like style. All of these things come into your brain and tell you about who people are. And with that information, you make judgments. You can't help it. It's like the way that you learn language, you just assimilate it. It just becomes part of your truth. But that truth affects who you speak to, it affects whose opinions you respect, how you approach different ideas. So by living abroad, I didn't have access to that information about people because I was placed into all these different cultures whose rules I didn't recognize, like those unspoken rules that sort of protect you in a way that keeps you safe. To a certain extent, that information is useful, but in another way, it keeps you ignorant or allows you to not recognize that there are other ways of seeing the world. So when I started living abroad, I came across all of these people who I might not have met otherwise. And I was open and interested in their thoughts and their opinions, and they were challenging my ways of seeing the world. So over the years, what I've gained from that is to recognize that so many of the things that I thought were truth or fact had a lot to do with the community I was a part of, the culture that I come from, and not with actual truth or fact, which is a very broad range of ideas. So my whole point is that people were asking me how culture affects language, for example. But I would say more than language, what it affects is your vision of the world and what you consider to be right and wrong. Right and wrong, black and white, truth and fiction, good and bad, all of these different things can be challenged and should be challenged, or by being challenged, you recognize your own ignorance and your own narrow-mindedness, and I think that that's a gem.